Ladies and gentlemen, can you please take your seats? Our program is about to begin. Thank you.
Good morning. For those of you who I've not yet met, I'm Richard Sommer, and I'm the Dean of the John H. Daniels Faculty of Architecture, Landscape, and Design. It's a tremendous pleasure to welcome you here today to celebrate the opening of our faculty's new home, the Daniels Building at historic One Spadina Crescent. Of course, this site has a very long and storied history, one which actually predates the construction of Knox College here in the 19th century. Being mindful of this, and before delving into this morning's program, I wish to acknowledge the land on which the Daniels faculty and the University of Toronto operates. For thousands of years, it has been the traditional land of the Huron-Wendat, the Seneca, and most recently, the Mississaugas of the Credit River. This place where we meet today is still the home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, and we are grateful to have the opportunity to work on this land. Okay, some of you may have noticed that we've been feverishly trying to complete this project to make it shine for today, especially our students and colleagues. Actually, a construction crew was in this very hall 24 hours ago. But we're pretty much done, and the opening of our new home has been many years in the making. Over this faculty's 127-year history, there have been many creative and intellectual accomplishments worth celebrating. But the school has never really had a big enough platform or a home worthy of its ambitions. I've had the chance to talk with many of you about this project in recent years. So really, the main purpose of today's event is to thank everyone who has helped us realize the most ambitious expansion of an architecture school, not only in Canada's history, but across North America for more than a generation. I really wish I could thank each and every person that has helped us individually today, but we might be here all day. So, nonetheless, let me take a few important minutes. Let me start by thanking our campaign cabinet, our alumni, our donors, and the many friends of the school who have contributed their time, effort, and most importantly, financial resources to this project. I've been particularly heartened by the renewed engagement of our many alumni and a broad network of professional colleagues and firms throughout the city in the life of our school. Leadership is important, and this project would not have been possible without the support of 2 University of Toronto presidents and 2 provosts. Soon after I arrived at the university, our former provost, Cheryl Missack, who's a philosopher, was a bold enough thinker to consider what seemed like a real stretch for us, and quickly arranged a meeting for me to pitch the idea of this project to former President David Naylor. And they both saw the potential of this project very quickly. One day, early on, when we were struggling to figure out how we might actually pull this project off, David Naylor summoned me to a meeting in the middle of a cold, dark November afternoon, a little bit like it was here in the city a few days ago. I had raised some rather difficult questions about how to make this work. When I arrived, David asked me to join him in a scotch. Now, I don't usually drink during the day, but that day I got the feeling that I probably should. So I'm not going to share the details of our conversation, except to say that David convinced me to push forward. He assured me we would find a way to get this done and advised me to, quote, "under no circumstances show any doubt," end quote. Now, he was true to his word, and I did my best to follow his advice. He actually reminded me on a number of occasions that he was still a medical doctor, and if need be, he could write me a prescription to calm my nerves. And I often considered taking him up on that offer. So by the time we started to put shovels in the ground and some of the real costs came due, we had a new president, Professor Meric Gertler, and a new provost, Professor Cheryl Regier. And so we had to start the discussion again with them. Now, I want to say Cheryl, her expertise and her research is on trauma and emergency, kind of emergency management. She comes out of the School of Social Work, and that really comes in handy. So I cannot emphasize how much Cheryl and Meric have recognized the importance of this project for the university and the city, and how, in actually a very important and bigger sense, this faculty has never had a better position at the University of Toronto than it has under both their leadership. David Naylor couldn't be here today. David Naylor couldn't be here today, but he's told me he wished he could have. And I walked Meric and I walked through this project last week, and I can assure you that there is not another university president in the English-speaking world that has an eye for architecture or understands the culture of design as much as he does. So I really want to extend my thanks to both these presidents and provosts and also the whole team that works with them. So I also want to thank my colleagues on the faculty, our staff, and especially our students. We are a community of architects, artists, landscape architects, and designers, and every single one of us is a critic. It's part of our ethos. Yet, as a community, you have all been incredibly generous. Your ideas, your insights, and patience have been critical to the process of getting this done. I want to specifically acknowledge 4 of my colleagues, Professor Barry Sampson, Stephen Fong, Rob Wright, and Laura Miller, whose knowledge and support has been invaluable. Barry, in particular, has served as my sage advisor and often confessor throughout the project. Laura's advice and support has been a little bit more behind the scenes. Also very much behind the scenes, I have to acknowledge Johnny Bowie and all the students and staff in our shops who, I don't know how to describe it, they're like the secret elves behind delivering a lot of what you see. I want to give a very special thanks to the people who designed and helped build our new home, especially Nadir Tirani and Katie Faulkner of NADA, who join us here today with some of their team, and our executive architects, Adamson Associates, our landscape architects, and a fantastic job, Public Work, and our heritage architects, ERA. And they're... This project has already been published and received important awards and accolades, and that was before it was even finished. So we've been in the trenches with Nadir and Katie and this very big team, trying to bring the project to life for, I think, more than 6 years, and the vision and commitment they have brought to the project really shows. A number of representatives from the University of Toronto's construction management and the construction firms whose work has been vital to accomplishing this project are also here today, including representatives from the Eastern Construction and Harbridge and Cross. So to everyone, and I mean everyone, who contributed to the design, construction, and execution of this inspiring Daniels building, thank you. Of course, today's celebration wouldn't have been possible without Mr. John H. Daniels and Mrs. Myrna Daniels. Their gifts have been the catalyst for an incredible transformation of this faculty. Their donations of $14 million in 2008 and another $10 million in 2013 are the largest of their kind to an architecture school in Canadian history. As most of you know, Mr. Daniels is our alumnus from the class of 1950. He is an architect and a renowned city builder with hundreds of projects to his credit, including many seminal projects here in Toronto. I met Mr. and Mrs. Daniels sooner after I arrived in Toronto, and they communicated two things to me that have been instrumental to making this project happen. First, when we were initially pursuing a renovation of our old building at 230 College, they simply asked, "Doesn't the faculty need to do something bigger?" That gave us the courage, and their ambition for us soon caught on with others in the city. Then, once the plan to remake this site, One Spadina Crescent, was underway, Mr. Daniels looked me in the eye and told me, point blank, "Do not compromise on this vision." So in the course of trying to accomplish this project, I have actually had many WWJDD moments, thinking, and sometimes actually saying to colleagues, both on the contracting and design side, "What would Mr. Daniels do?" Or "What would John Daniels do?" And then I'd say, "Or think." So, John and Myrna, you have been extremely patient waiting for us to get this done. Having you here today to witness firsthand the enormous impact of your philanthropy means a great deal to me and to everyone who understands your deep commitment to this place. Thank you. I want to add a warm welcome to all of John and Myrna's guests who have joined us here this morning to celebrate this milestone. I would now like to introduce the other members of our platform party who will address you from the stage today. Let me start with Ms. Claire M.C. Kennedy, Chair of the Governing Council of the University of Toronto, and Professor Meric S. Gertler, President of the University of Toronto. They are joined by Professor Ronald J. Daniels, President of the Johns Hopkins University and a U of T alumnus, who will bring remarks on behalf of Mr. and Mrs. Daniels. Also on the platform is Mr. Michel Cohen, a member of our campaign cabinet and President of the Daniels Corporation. Michel will bring congratulations on behalf of Mr. Daniels and his colleagues. Finally, I would like to extend a warm welcome to Farah Michel, an undergraduate student completing her final year in our Honors Bachelor of Arts Architectural Studies program. Farah will say a few words on behalf of our student community. As we mark this important moment in our faculty's history, I'm also pleased and honored to welcome City of Toronto Deputy Mayor, Councillor Stephen Holliday, who is representing Mayor Tory's designate this morning, as well as Acting Chief Planner Greg Lintern. Councillor Holliday and Mr. Lintern, could you please stand? Thank you for being here. The University of Toronto's $2.4 billion Boundless campaign has redefined the philanthropic possibilities of our university and universities across Canada. The revitalization of One Spadina Crescent was achieved not only as the result of the leading philanthropy and generosity of John and Myrna Daniels, but also through important gifts by our extended community of alumni, our campaign cabinet, Toronto's leading architecture firms, the development community, our faculty, and others deeply committed to our school and to this city. Please take a moment to note all that have supported our efforts, whose names are displayed in the screen in the Commons outside this hall after our remarks this morning, and you can see that during the reception. We are now close to achieving our fundraising aspirations as part of University of Toronto's Boundless campaign. Over the next year, with the participation of some in the audience today, we expect to announce additional philanthropic investments in the faculty's future. Speaking personally, I am not sure that when we took this project on, that I was able to imagine the many challenges we would have to overcome. Yet I know that doing anything important, doing anything that will somehow have a lasting impact, is rarely easy or without risk. And so, being here this morning, celebrating this project with so many of you who helped make it happen, I'm not sure I could be happier or more grateful. To all of you joining us here today, and to everyone that supported us, thank you. I would now like to call upon Professor Meric Gertler, President of the University of Toronto, to preside over this morning's ceremony.
Thank you, Richard, and thank you for your extremely generous and warm thanks earlier. This is an incredible day, and good morning, everyone. It's wonderful to look out on this crowd and to contemplate why we are here, because this really is a momentous occasion, not just for the university, but for the city and indeed for the entire country. So when I started at U of T way back in the 1980s, I think it's fair to say that the glory of One Spadina Crescent seemed to belong to its past. Arriving here this morning, it is so gratifying to see this storied building so beautifully reimagined and repurposed. And it is hugely exciting to glimpse the future that its dazzling expansion has opened up. The Daniels Building has already breathed new life into this very important precinct in our city. Situated literally on the boundary between the university and the city around us, it is so appropriate that it reflects the highest standards of excellence for architecture and design. The Globe and Mail's architecture critic described it as one of the best buildings in Canada of the past decade, a place where students can develop designs that will move the city forward and perhaps even change the world. In September, the New York Times cited the Daniels Building as an exemplar of recent designs bringing new depth to contemporary architecture around the world. And the October issue of Canadian Architect featured the building and its brilliant architects Nader Tehrani and Catherine Faulkner as its cover story. Some beautiful photographs as well. So this global standing ovation is unprecedented, and it is contributing to U of T's reputation as a world-leading center for the study of architecture, landscape, and design, as one of the world's great universities, and as a city-building institution of the first rank. It also heralds a new era of local, national, and international impact on the part of our professors and students whose work is already helping to redefine urbanism in the 21st century. Of course, our ability to realize this and other objectives depends on the commitment of our alumni and friends, as Richard has already said. And it is the outstanding leadership of our two greatest benefactors, John and Myrna Daniels, along with the remarkable community of donors and alumni that they have inspired, that has made this extraordinary building possible. It's so appropriate then that next Wednesday, Mr. and Mrs. Daniels will be honored by the Association of Fundraising Professionals as Toronto's Outstanding Philanthropists of 2017. The University of Toronto was extremely proud to partner with the University Health Network to nominate them in recognition of the vital importance of their generosity. And I am so delighted that John and Myrna are here today, along with family and friends, and I'd like to express our profound gratitude to them on behalf of the entire university. Thank you again. Let me also take a moment to recognize Dean Richard Sommer for his outstanding leadership and commitment in realizing this bold vision, taking some risks that have really paid off for the Daniels faculty. Richard, this is quite simply a resounding triumph. Congratulations. And let me also take this opportunity to thank Mr. Michel Cohen, who is president of the Daniels Corporation, for joining us today, but also for his tireless work in continuing the Daniels Corporation's outstanding legacy of city building. Thank you, Michel. Well, now, ladies and gentlemen, I have the great honor to invite a very special guest to the podium, an individual who really needs no introduction in this community. Professor Ron Daniels is the 14th president of Johns Hopkins University, where he started his remarkable run in 2009. He's also a very distinguished U of T alumnus, a highly accomplished legal scholar, and former dean of our Faculty of Law. In his role at Hopkins, Ron has defined and implemented a truly brilliant vision for city building in Baltimore, and we are so pleased that Ron has joined us here today to offer some remarks on behalf of Mr. and Mrs. Daniels. Ron, please come up.
Well, Meric, thank you so much for that very warm introduction, and let me just start by acknowledging the tremendous academic leadership that you and Dean Sommer have shown in bringing this faculty to its next step, in truth, a quantum leap forward on so many different dimensions. I would be remiss, Dean Sommer, if I didn't take a moment to acknowledge my debt to you in terms of my ability to continue to learn from and with you. Until your remarks this morning, I had no appreciation of David Naylor's crisis management skills and the liberal use of alcohol in lubricating his leadership. This is important for me because as a university president in Trump's America, I now feel I have the hope of a strategy that will get me through this period. It will be Scotch, it will be upon waking, and it will be a double. Thank you. Nearly a decade ago, at the dedication of the Daniels faculty, I shared an excerpt from a remarkable speech given by the valedictorian of the Central Technical High School, John Daniels, my uncle. He gave the speech in June 1944, the same month that D-Day marked the start of the Allies' determined march across Europe. In his remarks, and I quote, he observed, "To us belongs the task not only of winning the war, but also of winning the peace. We must not stumble nor falter, but chart our course according to the lessons we have learned. At the time, my uncle was an 18-year-old immigrant to Canada. He had arrived together with his parents and siblings 6 years before, and remarkably, without knowing a single word of English. That's worth applause. Now, in those 6 years, he embraced not only a new nation, but a new language, and he understood both of them well enough to produce a trenchant commentary that astonishingly resonates today. But this speech was not the only instance of his preternatural gifts. I learned about something just about a week or two ago in a conversation with my uncle in New York. That same year that he delivered the valedictory speech at Central Tech, my uncle won a national essay contest sponsored by a patriotic magazine that had been established by the Canadian government during the war called Canadians All. In it, he observed, "We shall put away all our selfish desires and work together to establish a model country for all the world." That model country would be defined by, he said, a Canadian spirit. It would be a nation where, he said, all men and women who adopt this land as their home should be given the greatest support from us. A welcoming, helpful hand would do much towards their development. A welcoming, helpful hand would do much towards their development. And by the way, as my uncle recounts, he got a leather-bound set of Encyclopedia Britannicas for winning the first prize. With these words, John gave voice to his extraordinary affection for this nation, a special country that has accommodated multitudes and offered a welcoming, helpful hand to so many. Now, just months after his valedictory speech, that helpful hand would extend once again to my uncle as he entered University of Toronto School of Architecture. Located in austere accommodations in Ajax, the school's facility was hardly inspiring. But however drab that space was, the program that delivered within it was anything but. John can even today recall the lectures, seminars, and studios that shaped his understanding of and commitment to the craft of architecture, including one quite memorable visit by Frank Lloyd Wright. John and his classmates were told well in advance that the greatest American architect of the 20th century would come to the school to review and critique their end-of-term studio projects. On the appointed day, after months of frenzied anticipation and not inconsiderable toil, the student projects were arrayed, one by one, in a room specially designated for that purpose. The master arrived. He moved slowly and deliberately from project to project. He paused to examine each one, saying nothing as he moved silently around the room. At the end of what must have seemed like an eternity, he looked up and without hesitation or regret, and said, "Uncle Jack, wallpaper. Your projects are only that, wallpaper." And then, saying no more, he left the room. And they say that my profession law is rough. Today, we mark and celebrate the milestone of the Daniel School of Architecture, but we do so in a place that is a long last commensurate with this school's glorious past and brave future, a place that embodies the capacity of bold and daring design to make the human spirit soar high. A few months ago, my uncle and aunt had a chance to walk these halls with Dean Sommer and to see the grand and imaginative restoration of this site. Afterwards, he shared with me his considerable pride and joy in the success of this building. But as much as he delights in the achievement that One Spadina represents, his greatest happiness is rooted in how this place serves the rich constellation of students, faculty, and staff of different races, ethnicities, creeds, and religions who work, learn, and dream side by side from and with each other. This is the true embodiment of the Canadian spirit that John so evocatively described some 70-plus years ago in that All Canadians magazine. To be part of building places and institutions that are integral to making this country a model to the world, and it surely is that, and to do so in a place, the University of Toronto, that has given so much to my uncle, to his siblings, to me, and indeed to our entire family, means so much to John and indeed to all of us. President Gertler, Dean Sommer, faculty and students, words cannot do justice to the immense gratitude and bursting pride we have in being part of this moment and this truly extraordinary community. Thank you so much.
Wallpaper, rough indeed. Thank you, Ron. I'm now pleased to welcome Mr. Michel Cohen, President of the Daniels Corporation, to the podium.
Thank you so much, Dean Sommer. It's truly wonderful to be here. It has been such an honor for me and all of my colleagues, partners at Daniels, to have worked side by side with John Daniels over the past 33 years, building over 30,000 homes. John Daniels, truly a visionary, an entrepreneur extraordinaire, and a man dedicated not just to building great buildings, but to building strong, healthy communities. Now, one of Jack's greatest joys has always been to be there right on the floor when we're launching a new community, in particular, one of our first home communities. He was always so thrilled to be there to witness young people in particular taking their first steps on the pathway to home ownership. Now, in particular, I remember one morning in Mississauga, cold, crisp, blue sky, beautiful morning, early, because these first home launches start very early. But Mr. Daniels was there. And he was there as the first of 150 families put their red dot on the board, signifying that they are claiming their new home, their first home. Now, there was a young woman there. She was holding her baby, and she was crying, actually hysterically. And it was kind of hard to tell whether the tears were from joy or from anguish. Well, John went up to her. He approached this young woman to offer her comfort. Now, through her tears, this young woman stated emphatically, and she didn't know who this man was, but she stated emphatically, "Mr. Daniels has made me the happiest woman in the world." Now, I'll never forget, Jack looked over to me, and with his eyes glistening with emotion, says, "Michel, this is why we do what we do." Ladies and gentlemen, every step of the way, John has empowered us, all of us at Daniels, to make every decision based on doing the right thing. He's also challenged us every step of the way to use the power of our business platform to find new and creative ways to build affordable housing and to eliminate homelessness in our communities. Now, over the years, John and Myrna have consistently demonstrated leadership as thoughtful and caring philanthropists. But of all of their efforts, of all of their philanthropic efforts, however, the gift that we are celebrating today is just such a perfect reflection of John's legacy as both an architect and as a city builder. And tomorrow, and through a lifetime of tomorrows, the Daniels faculty in this truly brilliant building will have exponential impact here in Toronto and around the world. Mr. D, may every young architect, landscape architect, and designer be inspired, as all of us have been inspired, by your boundless energy, your generosity, your values, and your wisdom. Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. D.
Thank you, Michel. We greatly appreciate your personal commitment to this project and that of your colleagues Tom Dutton and Jim Aird at the Daniels Corporation. I would now like to invite Ms. Farah Michel to bring remarks on behalf of our student community.
Okay. Thank you, Dean Sommer. Firstly, I'd like to express my gratitude to John and Myrna Daniels and all our honored guests here today. Your contributions are so very appreciated. As a fourth-year undergraduate student, I'd like to speak to the more intimate scale of the individual and how this building and this faculty and the university has made me grow intellectually and how it's shaped my academic career. Having moved to Toronto about 3 years ago, I can confidently say that being a double major student of architecture and Italian has strongly shaped the way that I interact with the city in the way that I never would have had I not been a student at the University of Toronto. The biggest lesson I've learned at the Daniels Faculty of Architecture so far is that architecture is so much more than just the design of buildings. It's about people's lives, and it's about spaces, and it's about storytelling. And like the most interesting thing about architecture is that everyone can contribute to the conversation just because cities and buildings are such immersive spaces. And we live in a place that's built by us. Like that in itself is such an amazing idea. And the fact that we try to understand how we build or the way in which we build and the implications that that has on society through the history of architecture, that is even more curiously beautiful to me. Through its history and through design precedents that we've studied of both built and unbuilt projects, architecture teaches us to think about things as though we're looking at them for the first time, or to think of things in relation to each other with wonder. And like, all formalities aside, that childlike curiosity that we get to bring back into our lives because of that is so precious, and it's such a wonderful and exciting way of getting to see the world around you. We're also encouraged to be very critical, though, and to question everything, even our own thoughts and ideas. So the pin-up boards that you see lining our corridors outside, those are an excellent example of how this space influences the way that we look at design. So it reminds us to be critical, or to carry that critical eye even outside of our classroom setting. And this building itself brings all the students together, the students and the professors, in a way that reminds you of how like complex and interdisciplinary design is by nature. So we have this building here, and it's really interesting how it's a manifestation of an idea that once existed only as an idea in someone's mind. And this building has taken a while to become, but all great changes are preceded by chaos. And now that it's finally here, I think it's the biggest and most tangible lesson in the transition from construction to design and the iterative process that follows with having students actually move into the space and occupy the space. So far from being the final product, I think what you guys can see today in front of you is just a small portion of the faculty's large plans to grow and to prosper, and the faculty's plans to provide students with an infrastructure that both physical and intellectual that gives students the space to seek questions or seek answers to questions that we wrongly assume are unanswerable, and space to sort of recognize the importance of taking responsibility for the time that we occupy and the space that we take up, and from such an amazing vantage point. Because of these ambitious plans, the faculty has set an example for us as students that we too can imagine futures that are achieved by taking a critical standpoint about design. And from where we are now, there's no choice but to keep going, and there's no place to go but up. So thank you to every individual, both in this room and out, who has contributed to this faculty, be it with money, time, thought, or energy, and to the people who actually built this building. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Farah. We are honored to have Ms. Claire M.C. Kennedy, Chair of the Governing Council at the University of Toronto, here this morning to lead the ribbon-cutting ceremony. Claire?
Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Dean Sommer. It is wonderful to be here today for this historic occasion. I bring greetings and congratulations from the university's Governing Council to the entire Daniels faculty and its community of friends, supporters, alumni, and students. Dean Sommer's exciting vision for the faculty to reimagine urban life for the next century calls for a unique space that reflects its goals and ideals. And with the opening of the Daniels building, we gain that and a truly dynamic platform that will inspire and elevate the work of the faculty. To recognize that achievement, I want to express the Governing Council's sincere appreciation of Mr. and Mrs. Daniels' sustained commitment to the renewal of the Daniels Faculty of Architecture, Landscape, and Design, arguably Canada's leading school of architecture. To Mr. and Mrs. Daniels, and to all those volunteers, donors, and friends who have helped make this exquisite building a reality, thank you. Thank you for your leadership, for your generosity, and for your unwavering support of the faculty and the university. The University of Toronto's alumni community includes more than 562,000 people living around the world today. Farah and her classmates will soon join that community, who are the university's most important ambassadors, bringing it great esteem as they distinguish themselves and contribute to society in myriad ways. Mr. Daniels himself stands among the university's most accomplished alumni, with a Bachelor of Architecture degree, not to mention the well-deserved honorary Doctorate of Laws he received in 2011. It is inspiring to witness the legacy of Mr. and Mrs. Daniels that they have created and to see it reach new heights in the breathtaking and iconic Daniels building. To look around Principal Hall today and see many of Canada's most talented architects, designers, and city builders reminds us that the Daniels building will be a launch pad for world-class creative talent and a singular place to watch. The outstanding philanthropy and advocacy of Mr. and Mrs. Daniels and the faculty's community of supporters will have a profound and lasting impact on our city and our country as the faculty addresses the challenges of urban life we face over the next several decades. You may have noticed the two beautiful ribbons that were created for this momentous event. One ribbon lists all the names of the faculty's current students, and the other lists the faculty's alumni. Now it is time to bring out a third ribbon. I would like to ask Dean Richard Sommer and the platform party to assist with the formal ribbon cutting ceremony. We're going to assemble here.
Got your point.
Let's look. Ready? It is.
Well done.
It,
As we celebrate the opening of the spectacular new building, I want to emphasize that this moment is not just about the new architecture, about the glass, the steel, and concrete, or the old bricks and the new colors, but about what we can and will do with it. The Daniels Building provides us with an extraordinary opportunity to strengthen our programs, research, and community outreach, the benefits of which will extend far beyond the circle on Spadina to generations of students, faculty, and citizenry. We are now focused on delivering on the investment that has been made in us. To our students, and you'll see some in the hall, but many up in the sky boxes. This place is for you. It was conceived as a platform and a showcase for the incredible work you do here every day. In celebrating this new place, we're reminded of what better architecture, landscapes, and cities writ large can and should afford society. Our ambitions at Daniels is to be a key place at this university and in this city, and one of the best in the world for bringing creative thinking, design-based research, artistry, and imagination to bear on the most pressing problems facing our time. We have received a great gift in this new building, but this is just the start. Okay, as we draw the formal portion of this morning to a close, students from our Faculty of Music will now perform that great naive melody by the Talking Heads, "This Must Be the Place."
lifted up her wings. I guess that this must be the place. I can't tell one from another. Did I find you or you find me? There was a time before we were born. If someone asks, this is where I'll be, where I'll be. Hey, we drifted in and out. Hey, singing to my mouth. Out of all those kinds of people, you got a face with a view. I'm just an animal looking for a home, and I share the same space for a minute or two. And you love me till my heart stops. Love me till I'm dead. Eyes that light up, I see through you. Cover up the blank spot, hit me on the head like
Okay, like the song says, cover up the blank spots and hit me in the head. And I don't know where you are, John, but that was just the right amount of cowbell. I want to give many, many thanks to our incredibly talented students from the music faculty who provided not only that great rendition of the Talking Head song, but did all the music this morning. We're coming to a close. Now, on behalf of the Daniels faculty and the university, I would like to invite all of you to join us for a reception at our new commons behind me here, outside these doors and in the adjoining galleries. In addition to some refreshments and conversation, I encourage you to take the time to view some of the student work that's on display on the galleries around the halls. I also encourage you to visit our extraordinary graduate student design studio on the 3rd floor via the stairs over here or the elevators and meet with some of our students and see all the work that's going on up there. You can see that space up there. It's really the kind of cathedral up there of design. So we've also organized a number of student-led tours of the building throughout the reception. If you would like to take one of these, for those of you who haven't seen the building, you have to go over to the east main entry over there. Finally, I want to note to all of you that this morning is just one of the celebrations we have planned to commemorate the opening of this building today and throughout the year. Tonight, in this very space, from 7 p.m. to midnight, we'll be hosting a party with our students and alumni. It's going to get a little bit more rowdy with a DJ and some food trucks and some other things, but you're all welcome to attend. Later in the year, we're going to have a series of events around the theme, what is a school? And then in parentheses, of architecture, art, design, and landscape. And I invite you also to look into those. Those will be more expansive discussions about the relationship of architecture to, well, almost everything. So, on behalf of the University of Toronto, I want to thank each and every one of you for sharing this with us today. Enjoy the reception and the building.